Do you know how much a garbage collector makes riding the back of a truck through your neighborhood? You've watched them work your whole life, and you've probably never once wondered what that job actually pays. Most people assume it's the bottom of the ladder, hard, dirty, unskilled, and paid accordingly. Some parents even use it as a warning: study hard, or you'll end up on the back of a truck. So here's a number that's going to break that assumption completely, and it comes straight from the city itself. In New York City, a sanitation worker's base salary after 5.5 years is over $92,000. With overtime, the average climbs near $117,000, and the top 10% pass $150,000. Full health coverage, a pension, and retirement in your late 40s while your friends still have 20 years left. And here's the part that really flips it: you probably couldn't get this job even if you wanted it. Today, the real pay, the real danger, and why one of America's most looked down on jobs has a waiting list. Because the money isn't paying for the garbage. It's paying for something else entirely, something most people never think about. Let's get into it. Before we count anybody's money, hit subscribe. And help me out. It's free, and it's the only thing I'll ever ask you for. 5:15 a.m. A garage in Brooklyn. 200 trucks. 800 workers. Coffee everywhere. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Nobody is paid to touch garbage. Anyone can lift a bag. That skill is worth nothing. What that paycheck is actually buying is somebody willing to step off a moving truck into live traffic, in the dark, 1,000 times a shift. And that willingness has a price. A much higher price than most people imagine. So let's start with the official numbers. New York publishes them openly. A new sanitation worker starts at about $44,800, which honestly sounds modest for New York City. And for the first year or two, it is. But this is where the job becomes different from almost every other, because the raises aren't negotiated. They're scheduled. Written into the union contract years in advance. Raises after 6 months. After 4.5 years. And after 5.5 years, the base reaches $92,093. Base before a single hour of overtime. Which means the pay roughly doubles over 5.5 years. Automatically, nobody asks for it. Nobody has to perform for it. The calendar delivers it. Sound familiar? The union construction worker had the same ladder. Union contracts don't reward negotiation. They reward showing up. Now the overtime, which changes everything again. Because sanitation never stops. Holidays, weekends, storms, emergencies, and the contract prices those hours generously. Saturday work, the first 6 hours at straight time, then time and a half after that. Sunday work, paid at double time. Double for the same bags on a different day. And then there's the season that rewrites paychecks. Snow, because in most northern cities, sanitation plows the streets. The same workers, the same trucks. Different attachment. A major storm means 12-hour shifts around the clock, often on Sundays, often at double time, which is why a heavy winter can add tens of thousands to a single worker's annual income. Ask any sanitation worker about snow. They don't complain about it the way you do. So what does the whole package add up to? Reported figures put average total pay for New York sanitation workers at around $117,500 with overtime, and the top 10% exceed $150,000, with some reported figures reaching $180,000. Read that again, slowly. This is a job with no degree requirement, no student loans, no tuition, no unpaid internship, out-earning a large share of college graduates who spent 4 years and a fortune to get there. Which is the most uncomfortable fact in this entire video. Now the benefits, which are the real prize. Because the salary isn't even the best part. Full health coverage for the worker and the family, which in America is worth an enormous amount by itself. Then civil service protection, which makes termination without cause extremely difficult. No layoffs when a company restructures. No downsizing when a quarter goes badly. Because garbage is genuinely recession-proof. People stop shopping. They never stop producing trash. And then the item that makes veterans smile, The pension. 20 to 25 years of service, and you retire with guaranteed income for life, which means someone who starts at 25 can retire in their late 40s with a pension and a working body, if they're lucky, and decades left for a second career. Most office workers will still be working at 65. That's the trade nobody explains in high school. So if it pays this well, why isn't everyone doing it? Because you can't just apply. This is a civil service position, which means an exam. Filing periods open rarely, sometimes years apart, and when they open, the response is enormous. Tens of thousands of people apply. Then comes a list, ranked by score, and you wait for your number to be called, which can take months, sometimes years. Then, a physical test that eliminates a large share of candidates: lifting, carrying, climbing, endurance under time pressure. Then a medical, a background check, and a driving record review, and a commercial driver's license requirement. So the process takes 6 to 18 months, minimum, which produces a strange and revealing situation. A job people mock is harder to get than many jobs people respect. Okay, let's ride one full shift. Meet Dominic, 34. 6 years with the department, 4:30 a.m., the alarm. Because he commutes an hour to his assigned garage. 6 a.m., roll call, truck assignment, and route sheet. 2 workers per truck. One drives, one works the street, and they swap. Because nobody can do the street all day. 6:15, the route begins. And here's the number that defines this job. A residential route can carry over 1,000 stops, which means stepping off the truck 1,000 times. Grab, lift, throw, step back on. Move 10 feet. Repeat for 8 hours at a jog. Which is why this job is genuinely athletic. Workers commonly cover 10 miles a shift on foot, while lifting several tons of material. 7:40, a bag tears open. And this is where the job earns its reputation. Broken glass, sharp metal, things people should never bag. Needles, chemicals, batteries that catch fire in the hopper. Lithium batteries have become a serious hazard because they ignite when crushed, which is why sanitation departments beg people not to put batteries in household trash. Nobody listens. So the crews deal with it. 10 a.m., the truck is full. Time for the dump run. And a full route often needs 2 or 3 of these. Each one is 30 to 60 minutes of driving, which is why routes are timed so tightly. 2 p.m., shift ends. Body says otherwise. Dominic's base pay today, about $350. Then the supervisor asks about Saturday. And Dominic says yes. He almost always says yes. Because Saturday and Sunday are how the number becomes 6 figures. Now the part that explains the money. Because we said this pay isn't for touching garbage. Here's what it's actually for. Refuse collection is consistently ranked among the deadliest occupations in the United States. One recent year placed it 4th with a fatality rate of 41 per 100,000 workers, which was nearly double the previous year's rate. And the danger is not what people assume. It isn't the garbage, it's the traffic. Workers step into live roads in low light beside a large vehicle with enormous blind spots while distracted drivers try to squeeze past. 1,000 times a shift. Every shift. Which is why slowdown laws exist for sanitation trucks in most American states. And why every worker wears high visibility gear. So when you see a truck stopped ahead of you, that irritating 30-second wait, that's the entire safety system. Right there. Slow down. It costs you half a minute. Now let's zoom out beyond New York. Because those numbers are not the national average. New York City sits at the very top of this profession. Across the country, garbage collector pay varies enormously. In New York State overall, salaries run from about $35,000 to $70,000, and the biggest single factor is a familiar one: union representation. States with high union presence pay an average of about $50,800. States with low union presence, about $42,000. A gap of over $8,000 a year. For identical work on identical trucks. Sound familiar? We saw exactly this with construction. The contract, not the labor, sets the price. And there's a second split, public versus private. Municipal sanitation departments pay more and offer pensions. Private hauling companies often pay less, with fewer benefits and less job security. Which is why municipal jobs have waiting lists and private companies advertise constantly. Two versions of the same job, very different lives. Now what the body pays. Because this job is physically expensive. Repetitive lifting, twisting, and throwing. Thousands of times, every single shift. Backs, knees, shoulders, and wrists take the damage. Which is why the pension timeline matters so much. 20 to 25 years is roughly what a body can give. Then there's the weather, which never negotiates. Rain, ice, heat, and summer smell. August is legendary in this profession. And then the part that has nothing to do with the body, the way people look at you. Workers describe being ignored, avoided, or spoken down to by people whose streets they clean every week. Which is strange, because the pay says otherwise. The market values this job. People just haven't caught up. So how do the winners win in sanitation? Rule 1, get the municipal job, not the private one. The pension alone is worth years of extra salary. Rule 2, take the exam whenever it opens, because it might not open again for years. Rule 3, survive the first 2 years. The starting salary is the price of admission. The real money arrives at year 5. Rule 4, say yes to snow. One hard winter can reshape an entire year. Rule 5, protect the back like it's the pension. Because it is. An injury ends the timeline early. And Rule 6, keep taking the tests. Supervisor and superintendent roles reach much higher, with figures reported past 120,000. Every promotion in this system runs through an exam. So, the final math. The number you clicked for. A brand new sanitation worker, about $44,800, which is roughly $170 a day. After 5.5 years, $92,000 base. Roughly $350 a day before overtime. With overtime, average total pay near $117,000. Top 10%, over $150,000. Plus full health coverage and a pension at 20 years. Nationally, the picture is more modest, $42,000 to $51,000 depending on the union. The bags were never the variable. The city, the contract, and the exam decide everything. So that assumption from the start. The one about the ladder. That this is where you end up if you don't study. In New York, it's where you end up if you pass a test, wait 18 months, survive a physical exam, and beat tens of thousands of other applicants. Which is a strange definition of falling behind. So the next time a truck blocks your street and you sit there for 30 irritating seconds, remember what you're actually looking at. Not the bottom of anything. A $92,000 base salary, a pension most professionals will never have, and one of the 4 deadliest jobs in America being done 10 feet from your bumper. Every clean street you've ever walked down was somebody's 4:30 a.m. And a wave costs you nothing at all. If this changed how you see that truck, subscribe. Because next time, we're counting somebody else's route.